If I were to ask you what is science, you'd probably say it's an experiment. Then I'd have to say, nope, an experiment is something that we do to prove something. It's really a tougher question than you might think. Science is an investigation to find out the truth. It looks for exactly what religion does. Both science and religion are after the truth. A fundamental difference in the two is that religion has the truth, and science, though it tries really hard, is never going to find it. This sounds really harsh, but let's see what I mean. Each year, I take a poll of my students and find out who likes science and who doesn't. The ones who don't like it are the same ones who don't want to be bothered with anything outside their own ordinary daily life experience. They're only interested in their friends, their parents, their pets, whether their family loves them, where's their locker, and whether their teachers like them. Anything else is outside the box. There is nothing wrong with this, it's just how many of us interact with our world. On the other hand, those who like science are usually people who are bored with everyday life and want to find out what's different or outside their box. Like me, that's why I like science. Science is an investigation into the truth based on something unusual, unexplained, or different. So the topic must be unusual to be considered a science investigation. This is why the name game in my class is always done with a disc rather than a ball, because flying discs are more unusual than flying balls. That's why I use a lot of new technology, because it's different to have new technology. Let's look at an example. This year, my students will have a science project that's due on November 5th. We'll have to find a good science topic for our projects. So what might some of these science questions be? What if I were to ask, do my friends like me? Is this a good science topic? No, because friends are common, and whether or not your friends like you doesn't really matter to the world outside of your box. It has to matter to other people in some important way. What if we ask, what is inside this paper bag? No, also not a good science question, because paper bags are quite common, and a single paper bag that only matters to you is not important enough to the rest of the world. But what if a paper bag caught fire, then started floating into the air, and you ask, what makes that paper bag float when it catches fire? Then it becomes a science question. It's unusual to see something heavier than air floating off of the ground. Someone might care and want to use that evidence to make a form of transportation. The floating paper bag is called a discrepant event. All discrepant events are possible science topics. Since science is a serious hunt to find the truth, just one person doing their own testing doesn't generate enough evidence for a proof. We need lots of evidence, so it takes lots of people to prove something scientifically. So all science is done cooperatively, in teams or groups. That's why my classes get so much group work, like the name game, and group members change randomly for every lab or project. The testing is done in a certain way called an experiment. Experiments are comparison of two or more things. One of the things being compared must be a control, or something that's known, so that when you compare it to other things, you show the difference in the other. It makes that difference meaningful. Science calls the things that get compared variables. A variable can either be dependent or independent. The independent variable either just goes on its own without the ability to change it, or it causes the dependent variable to change. The dependent variable depends on the independent one for its change. For example, if you want to test how much higher a larger hot air balloon rose into the air than a smaller one, the variables would be size of bags and how high they rose. Which would be the independent variable? The size of the bags or how high the bags rose? The way to answer this is an understanding about what causes what. Does how high they rose cause their size, or does the size of the bag cause how high it rises? When you think of it this way, it should be obvious that the size would cause the distance it rose, not the other way around. It just wouldn't make any sense. So the bag size is the independent variable and the distance that it rises is the dependent one. Then, after testing, hopefully you've proved something. And if a whole bunch of scientists all agree on similar findings, they call this agreement a theory. And if this theory can be written out in a math formula and it's proven to work in every circumstance, it's called a law, like the law of gravity or law of universal attraction. Now, what's really interesting about science is that it never stops. We keep investigating things all the time. Seems like at some point we would know everything, right? But that doesn't happen because for science to be science, there's always an unknown. If we found all the answers, then there would be no more science. It would just stop. So that means that no matter how close we think we're getting to the answers, we never actually get there.